What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie meditation teacher in New York City, get together to discuss living mindfully? That's a great question, because we don't know what will happen either. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. Now, on to the show.
Greek Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us that we have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. This quote has definitely helped me to get quiet, relax into a conversation, and become a better listener. To help us understand why and how listening will help us to become better leaders at home and at the office, we have the honor of speaking with my friend and communication coach, Ryan Schadt, with us today. Thank you for tuning in to Men Talking Mindfulness, where we do our best to demystify and make mindfulness meaningful to you. As always, we don't have a show without my co-host and brother from another mother, Jon McCaskill. Hey, John, how's life over there in Colorado Springs?
Oh, dude, it is great. We just had an epic snow yesterday. I mean, not epic, but enough to just make it fun. And my wife and I, we still sent the kids to their preschool, and we just took a snow day, and it was fantastic just to kind of reset and just take some time off in the middle of the week, right? Not a planned holiday, not anything where we really planned it, but it was just, hey, spontaneous time off, and it was great to do that. But yeah, life is good here, and I'm very excited about this show. We've got some announcements. We popped up in Mindful Magazine, their online version, with a write-up with their CEO, Brian Welch, who was a guest on our show a couple weeks ago. Fantastic to see that and very much appreciate that write-up. And we'll put that link in the comments here. Then over and above that, if you're sick and tired of just hearing about mindfulness and really want to start experiencing it, experiencing all the benefits, the power of mindfulness, the M2, the Mindfulness and Movement Experience with Dr. Teresa Larson, it is back. The next cohort actually resumes next week, February 23rd. So sign up with the link in the comments, and I'll just read it out. It's pretty easy. It's movement-rx.com/MTM. That again is movement-rx.com/MTM. And then lastly, the Mindful Frogman shirt. If you're watching this on video, or rather if you're listening to it, maybe check it out on YouTube. But it's Mindful is the Frogman, with a frog sitting in combat equipment, meditating. It's a fantastic shirt that was put together by Mission 60, one of the companies that I subcontract for. And they made that as part of their Deliberate Discomfort Challenge. And we'll make sure the link is in the comments and in the show notes. I'll turn it back over to you, Will, for the bio. I'll bring Ryan up.
Well, nice shirt, number one, John. And I got the navy blue one. They have like 4 different colors. So, well, there's Ryan. Hey, Ryan, how are you today?
Hey, gents.
Good. So glad you're here today. So Ryan Schadt is an executive coach and former financial risk manager that spent the first 13 years of his career in investment banking and professional services. His focus is helping leaders and teams grow revenue and increase performance through communication, relationship building, and leadership training workshops. Ryan believes that every successful client story begins by helping them create an authentic connection with their audience, whether it's one-on-one interactions or speaking to large groups. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan. Good to see you. It's good to have you, outside of our men's group, and speaking to you about your expertise and helping with those expertise, help inform our audience about the power of and leading through listening.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Thanks, John. Excited to be here and talk with you guys about how mindfulness intersects with deep listening skills, whatever that means. Maybe try and unpack that today and see what it means to you guys, see what it means to a mindfulness guru, yoga teacher, and also a Navy SEAL. How do you listen when everything's going wrong? How do you listen when you're feeling really nervous? Because it's really hard. It's hard to stay present with anything when you're feeling other stuff. So anyway, I want to talk about that later, but thanks a lot for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Ryan. Beautiful.
Well, we're very excited to get into the show. But we got
totally. And we got our grounding practice.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
So which will make us better listeners, which we'll get into all that in the show. But I'll kick it off with this grounding practice. We'll wrap up the show. If you've never watched the show or listened to the show, that's how we do it. We ground ourselves, and we ground our guest, and we ground our audience. It's a little bit of everything there. But this particular grounding will be focused on listening. So if it's safe to do so, you're not driving, you're not around any sharp objects or moving or anything like that, go ahead and close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. Otherwise, just soften your gaze. And let's bring our attention to our breath, the physical sensation of breathing. Don't feel that you need to force anything, just notice it, breathing naturally, noticing the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in and out, the expansion and contraction of your belly as you breathe in and out. Noticing the physical sensation of the air entering your body, be it through your nose or through your mouth. And leaving your body, again, be that through your nose or through your mouth. And now just bring your attention to what it is you're hearing. We're going to be speaking about listening today, but that's obviously involves our physical ability to hear. Just notice the noises that you're hearing, maybe the noises that you are making. Focus on those first, those noises that are in or around you, immediately around you. And then shift a little further out. Maybe notice any noises in the room, the space that you're in. Don't feel a need to identify it necessarily, but just notice it. And then push your awareness even further out, maybe into the building or the expanded space outside your immediate surroundings, listening for anything that you may hear. Again, not necessarily feeling the need to identify it, but just being aware of it. And then let's wrap it up with 2 deep cleansing breaths together. Begin by breathing out as much air as you can and listen to that breath as you breathe out. Go ahead and breathe out now. Hold at the bottom, empty. Deep breath in, again, listening to the breath in. Hold at the top. Let it go, listening, listening, listening. Hold at the bottom, empty. Deep breath in. Finally, hold at the top and relax. Now, on your own time, start to blink your eyes open or refocus your gaze. Come into this time, this space, and here we are. Very exciting conversation, leading through listening with Ryan. All right, let's kick it off. Will, over to you, brother.
Ryan, thanks again for being here. Let's just start right away by what let's maybe they're the same thing, or maybe they're not. Like, how do you define listening, and then how would you define like a good listener?
Great. Thanks, Will. So how do you define listening? I guess if we looked it up in the dictionary, we'd probably see it's something about absorbing content, right? You're saying something, I'm digesting those words and I'm trying to interpret them. So at a surface level, it's sound going from one person to another, and we're digesting that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different levels of listening through that lens, from being a terrible listener where I'm not digesting anything you're saying, to tuning into attentively what you're saying, and every word you're saying I'm hearing and I'm digesting that, right? So that's one way of defining listening. But there's another way of defining it, and you could say that other way of defining it is actually what's happening beneath the words. What else is going on when you're listening to somebody, right? Is it just about the words? And just by how you're nodding, and we know there's more to listening than the content or the language, right? And that's where I'm really fascinated with what that is. How do you develop that skill? What is that about, right? And I think a lot of people have heard of empathetic listening or empathy, right? It's a word going on a lot, or not going a word going around a lot today. But can I empathize with you when I'm listening to you? Because we have a lot of processing power in our brains, in our energy. Meaning, I think science says we can digest something like 500 words per minute, right? And human beings supposedly speak on an average of 125 words a minute, right? So what does that mean? Wow. That means there's a gap between you're speaking to me at 125 average, maybe Jon a bit faster, Will a little bit slower, whatever. But then there's a 375 word gap there. There's this extra bandwidth. Right. What do I do with that bandwidth? Well, our minds start going to my iPad sitting here, or my phone, which I intentionally put in the other room because that will capture my bandwidth, or the vacuum cleaner happening upstairs, right? So one of the theories that I have, and the argument I try to make is, well, with that extra bandwidth that we have, I can bring that attention not just to the words of what you're saying, but actually how you're saying it. I can think about, well, what's Jon feeling right now as he's sharing this with me? I can go there. I can pay attention to your body language. So I guess it's a nuanced answer, Will, that there's different ways of defining it, and there's different levels of listening, if that makes sense.
I like how you define that.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, Will. I like how you define that in that, it's not, I know the meditation that we just did was all on listening and hearing, the physical sensation of hearing, but there's more to it than that. It is truly digesting a lot. And in one of the courses that I teach on how to develop compassion and empathy. And, I have this one bullet that pops up on the slide and says, listen, and it has listen in quotations. And I do believe listening includes far more than just what we hear. It's also noting what is being said through body language. It is noting what is being said through, habits that people have. It is noticing to what is being said through intonation in the sentence, and how people say things. I mean, like asking, how are you versus how are you? Just something as simple as that. It means two different things. And, so much is lost in translation, just in not listening to body language, not listening to the intonation, and trying to form a response too early as well. I think that's probably where some of that processing goes as well, Ryan, is we hear, if we're speaking 125 words a minute and we hear those 125, the delta there, the 375 words that we could process, that's spent up here in our head trying to formulate a response. And we miss out. We probably even miss out on those 125 words that we could process properly. So it's really fascinating to talk about listening and talk about it in more than just what is being heard.
Yeah, that's like in my acting days, one thing they would constantly come back to is 95%, 90% of communication is nonverbal. It's how we're showing up physically. It is in inflections in how the words are being broadcasted, but I can tell when someone is open and receptive and listening and really, and I think another key word here, listening, is receiving, like kind of receiving my transmission or receiving the transmission, either it's verbal or nonverbal from somebody else. And then just being with that reception and also being open, to listening and to actually to that receiving. And one thing I'll say too is, like, I was a little worried, or I am still worried, like, a lot of our communication happens through text or through emails or, through just like one-way reception of like just receiving content, whether it's from a, social or, YouTube or something like that. And the art of conversation, which we're having here now, requires both. It's like a giver and a receiver, so yeah, it's just some of the things I want to throw out there. And this is a very excellent topic. And so any comments, Ryan, or we can kind of jump into like what would make like a good listener?
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that most people think they're pretty good listeners.
What? I didn't hear what you said.
Myself included, right? Myself included. So I make the argument that people need some help with listening, because we think we're pretty good, but then what does it mean to be a good listener? And also, why do we care? Like, why do we care about listening? I think it's worth pointing out. I was thinking about before my chat with you guys today. I'm like, why do I care so much about this topic? Why does it really matter? And I believe in my heart that if we were all better listeners, or just a little bit better, we'd have more meaningful connections. We'd live in the world would be a better place. There'd be more harmony, less conflict. And it would almost it would bring us to another I don't, without sounding too lofty, another dimension of being that really excites me when I think about that. And when you think about leaders, right? Like, often when you think about really great leaders, what's one thing that they're able to do? They're usually able to turn a stranger into a friend in a short amount of time. Right? They can do that really fast. And so what is that all about? How do they do that? And I want to give a shout out to Richard Garnett. He's the founder of GSP Comms. He's the guy that put together a lot of what I learned. And he built his methodologies and frameworks on the shoulders of giants before him, crisis negotiators and psychotherapists like Carl Rogers, and a lot of studying and reading out there. And how do you do that? How do you turn a stranger into a friend in a short amount of time? And I think part of that, like part of the building blocks of doing that, is to really understand somebody, right?
Yeah.
We all really want to be understood, and we want to understand. It's both. I want to understand you, and I really desperately want you to understand me. And when somebody can show up to a conversation and really listen, like really with integrity, meaning they actually care. They're not fake listening. They're not just going through the motions and nodding and pursing their lips or whatever, that kind of active listening methodologies, if you will. Those are important, but the integrity of really being with somebody that wants to be there and truly listening to you. Real quick story is, how sometimes in life you remember a meeting with somebody and you'll never forget it. You'll never forget how you felt in that meeting or that conversation. And so this is probably going back to 2012, 2013. And I met up with this guy in Bryant Park at a restaurant. His name was Richard Zimmerman. And met him for an hour. I met him at another kind of leadership conference event. And I sat down with him and we started talking. And for the whole hour, he really just listened to me. He asked questions and we kept going deeper. And I had never had a conversation like that in my life. And I've had very few since then, to be honest. And it was an amazing experience to be in a conversation where somebody's really genuinely just listening to you and exploring and allowing you to go deeper. So anyway, we'll talk more about that. And I can't seem to get a hold of Richard for many years. So apparently whatever I said to him in that conversation wasn't that interesting. So he's out there somewhere. Richard, if you're hearing this, thank you for that memory, because it was powerful, right? And part of what I care about is helping people and leaders and teams to develop those skills with a couple of simple frameworks on giving another person or a group of people the experience of what it's like to really be listened to with integrity, like really wanting to be there. So then how do you do it? So sorry for that was my long-winded response, Will.
No, not at all. I think it might be wise, good for us to dive into that experience with Zimmerman. It's like, so how did he make you feel? You know, I think that's like the feeling part of this is like you brought up earlier about how, I mean, I know great leaders, they hold space. And I think when you're able to turn someone into a friend so quickly, I feel it comes from a place of having that empathy, that ability to empathetically listen to somebody. But it's also you're by doing that and really being present to what they're saying, like, you know, actually being heard, like allowing that other person to be heard, you're fostering trust, which I think is a big part of that relationship you're kind of talking about. And you know, if you're in a leadership role and you have a subordinate that's coming to you with a problem or something like that, like, and just really listening to that problem and really taking in what they're saying, you're immediately gaining that trust. So next thing that comes out of your mouth as a leader, I'd imagine they're going to be able to hear it because you're kind of working in this from this same place of not making it about my ego or my position or my authority, you know, and really making it about trying to fix the problem, which usually lends itself to helping other people in some ways. So can we go back to that? If you take a moment, Ryan, and maybe like what was to be able to like have someone sit before you for like an hour and just really listen and maybe like speak like over that hour, maybe 10 minutes and you're speaking the other 50 is like, what was the draw to keep going? You know what I mean? To keep talking. And I'm just curious, like, cause I think there's a big feeling aspect here to come back to that whole idea of trust and everything. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that the big thing is that for me, I remember that interaction so clearly. It's like a JPEG video in my mind that I'll always remember. And I think I remember it because I felt like he was really connecting with me. He was really tuned into what I was saying. And he wasn't just nodding and allowing me to go. He was reflecting back what I was saying. And he was empathizing, right? So he was taking some shots at what I might have been feeling, and he was getting them right. And so when somebody identifies, this is another thing I learned from the other Richard Garnett, right, the GSB guy, the group that I work with. He says the quicker in a conversation you can go from head to head, where you and I are connecting at that content level, right, which is important. The content of my language and you getting that is really important, without a doubt. But the quicker I can go from head to head to gut, where I'm connecting with you at an emotional level, where we're feeling together, is where real chemistry happens, you might argue, right? And I think this is the stuff that happens on a good date. I think it's the stuff that happens with the people that we choose to spend the most time with in our life. Right? We have chemistry with these people. And interesting, on the flip side, the people that we're closest with, sometimes we struggle the most to listen to because we've got so much other stuff going on and baggage. And when we start feeling comfortable with somebody, then anyway, that's like conversation part 2. Let's bring it back. You know, that's another deep rabbit hole, which I'm really interested in too. I remember it well, and the visual memory. And I remember feeling like he understood me, and he was genuinely curious to allow me to go deeper. You know, I think most people want a space where they can share their story. Like really, like, wait, what? I can talk about me for the next 20 minutes, and I can tell you my story. Like when somebody does that and gives you a real safe space to do that, that's an incredible experience. It's so incredible that a lot of us pay people to do that. We're therapists, right? And it makes sense, right? So what if we lived in a world where we could bring that to anybody at any time? But it's not so easy to do that, and that's where I have some questions for you guys. Yeah, because it's not always so easy to do that, and I'll share more about that.
Can we just go back to that moment? And sorry, Jon, I just got one. So what was his body language like? We talked about like the importance of, most of our communication is done through our body language. Like, what was this Zimmerman's guy like? How was he sitting, if you remember, or just the kind of energy coming off of him, which our physical, if I cross my arms or, drop my chin and cross my arms, like it's just a closed off energy, it's a closed off physicality. What was his energy like? What was his body language like in this?
Yeah. So I don't remember everything in terms of his body language. I remember his eye contact was pretty tuned into me.
Here you go.
So I was getting the eye contact, and I can tell you what he wasn't doing. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't looking elsewhere. He wasn't sending me signals that he, didn't really want to be there. He was sending me signals that he cared, and that those signals are different for everybody. It's like just, it was eye contact and just genuinely having a feeling that he cared to be there. And I think whatever body language came with that is what was happening. Because we were in a fairly busy restaurant in like the back of Bryant Park, I think one level up. I don't remember the name of the place, but it's like you could be in this busy place, a lot of noise happening, and then somebody's so tuned into you, you're having this almost quiet experience, like you're in the Matrix or something. That's kind of what the memory was like.
Nice, thanks.
What I've found is, I don't know necessarily that I can put my finger on one particular experience like you can, Ryan. But I've definitely had similar experiences, and what I found in those experiences is, yes, the body language is kind of on receive mode, but the other person, one, makes you feel kind of heard and seen, makes you feel important, right? That's what we all want to feel. We all want to feel this sense of belonging and a feeling of significance. But we also very often feel uncomfortable when there's this pause, there's silence in the conversation. And I think a lot of the best listeners listen to the entire thought that the other person in the conversation is having. They're not sitting there formulating a response to fill that void immediately after, the one person's done speaking. And then they're comfortable in that silence immediately after. So, Ryan, you're speaking to me, you're telling me something, I'm listening, and I'm listening to all 125 words that you're saying per minute. And then when you're done, I take that pause to process my potential response, and to process everything that has been said, rather than processing it while you're talking and wanting to regurgitate to fill that silence after you're done speaking. I think that's what I have found to really make me feel as though what I have said is important. It seems a little awkward because the conversation isn't flowing just nonstop, but it's that's when I can tell the other person really cares about what it is I'm saying, and then cares that their response is an appropriate response and not just something that they've regurgitated just to feel as though they're filling that void.
I have this whole thing, what I'm hearing.
It's happening right there.
It was happening.
Yeah, here I am jumping all over the fucking pause. Sorry, guys. Right? And here's what I want to say.
Shut the fuck up, Will.
Shit. Sorry, guys. I really fucked up that moment. And here's, I guess, what I have just fallen into. The trap is like, am I listening or am I waiting to speak? And that's a big distinction, right? Am I really listening or am I waiting to speak? So maybe we should take another pause, digest that, and then one of you guys speak. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
I love it.
I feel like Jon called out the voice in my head because he goes, listening and being with the silence, not just regurgitating something that, and then whenever I'm like, oh God, I was just about to regurgitate something. I was like, I want to sound so smart here on this podcast with you guys, right? And that brings up one of the challenges is like really being present and not being with what you just said, Will. Like, oh, when Jon finishes, I'm gonna say this because it's gonna sound brilliant. Rather than like let Jon speak, let him finish, be with that. Because in that silence too, Jon, I would argue that you may want to have more to say. Right? That's another part of that silence where when people give us that extra space, they might go a bit deeper. And if we don't shut the hell up for a little bit longer, we lose the opportunity for them to potentially go deeper. We can't force them to go deeper. People go deeper on their own terms, and they go deeper when they feel trust. Back to what you said, Will, before. But if I've built that trust, whether it's in a really short meeting or I've built that trust with you over the course of a couple of years, then people might go deeper. And I think when people feel safe, they want to go deeper into those kind of deeper realms, and possibly because we don't even know what's happening deep down there. Right? We want to share it with somebody else and see if they can help us navigate through it. And I think great listeners do that. I was reading this morning. I forget why. I think I was just reading about just reading up on listening. Reading this book called "You're Not Listening" by Kate Murphy. Great one. I'd recommend. Has so much good stuff in there. And
so I'm sorry, what was it again? You're Not Listening by who?
Yeah, hold it
Kate
up.
Murphy. Yeah, You're Not Listening, Kate Murphy. I wish this was my name down here. It's not. She's a journalist.
Soon enough, Ryan.
Yeah, she's brilliant. And it's really good. She talks about improv acting. And Will, you could probably chime on this. Yep. Part of great improv acting is the ability to stay tuned in to what's happening to the person right before you and following that thread. And I did a little improv acting while I was still in the world of finance. And it was fascinating working that muscle of you said this, thanks, Lindsay, yes, and, right? And
right.
Yes, and from what you just said, though, and actually being tuned into you. Because when I'm not tuned into you, it's kind of hard for me to improv with you if I'm just then going down some other tangent that's not really connected. So, Will, did you do improv acting when you were in the acting world? Did you?
I definitely, yeah. I had, I used it in order. I really enjoyed improv a lot, but as you bring it up and as you're kind of talking about it in this way, the challenge is, and to really be heard, to really communicate, to really be present. What I'm experiencing now is like, because the work that I'm doing now, it's like it's the will of the ego versus like your heart, right? And I think that comes back to that dichotomy I just talked about. Are you listening or are you waiting to talk, right? If you're really listening, that kind of, I feel, comes from the soul, the heart, the gut level we talked about earlier. And if you're just waiting to talk, it's just the willfulness of your ego that is just waiting to be heard, or like you said earlier, waiting to be brilliant, or waiting to like blow everybody away with whatever the fuck's going to come out of my mouth next. Whereas like to really be a good improvisational actor, yes, but you don't have that, you don't get to a true yes, right? And if you're not really being present and really digesting and taking in from this, like, again, I think it's coming from this energetic place, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said the word, because I was listening very well, Ryan, you said the word signal, right? Mm-hmm. So signal, meaning it's like, what is that signal, right? And we talk often in shows, like we're energetic beings. And if you're very present, you can be really picking up and receiving that energetic communication or broadcast from somebody else that can really inform us from that gut level. I mean, we're how many, we have our own, neurological system, not just in our brain, but in our gut itself. I think Dr. Naidu was telling us about, we have like a lot of our serotonin levels, right, that are brought up into our body come from our gut, not from our mind. So that's a great point about improv. It's like what really makes improv good is the ability to listen, And let's just pull that into what makes an effective leader, right? A good listener, if you will. Or if you have another comment to what we're talking about improv, please.
What makes an effective leader a great listener? I think first is it goes back to this integrity word, that when I was taught these skills and frameworks, when I first experienced a listening workshop back in 2009 with a guy named Russell Bolter, who also is part of our team. There's the person or the leader. It could be a leader or a person, same thing. They're genuinely interested in being there, and that's the hardest part of teaching listening. That I would say you can't even really teach that. You have to really be more interested in them than you are in your phone or your whatever's going on in your world right now. And that's just, I don't know how you teach that, because that's about integrity and genuine interest. So I think that's first, and you pick up pretty fast if somebody's genuinely interested in you, and by the way, not using you either, right? They're genuinely interested in being present with you, tuned into what you're saying, and sending those signals that they're there, and then also reflecting back that they're hearing what you're saying. And at some point sharing their own, listening is not a one-way street either. At some point you have to share as well. Otherwise that would be therapy. And we're not therapists. We're trying to talk about building relationships, building connection. So there comes a point where I need to share my story too, as it may relate to yours first. If the context is, I'm trying to really genuinely connect with you and build a trusting relationship with you. Because if I can build a trusting relationship with you as a leader, then that's going to make my life easier. It's going to make my team stronger. You're going to feel more connected to me. You're going to have loyalty to one another. And I mean, I don't know anything about being on a battlefield and working in that kind of environment. But Jon, how important is listening and being tuned into your teammates in that realm where your life's on the line? Because I'm really curious about from that perspective, when things are so intense, right? And this is kind of one of the pre-questions I had for you guys, is like, when you're under stress, how do you listen well when things are not going well? How do you really listen well? Because it's really hard being in a survival mode and trying to tune into somebody else. I don't know. There's a huge disconnect there usually.
I would say it is very difficult. Yes, 100% agree, Ryan. But I would also say it's that much more important when the stress levels are high. And it's amazing, actually. I think some of the other body functions start to shut down, and you actually become more acutely aware of what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and what you're hearing. Some of the things that we're doing on the battlefield, almost everything that we're doing on the battlefield requires listening very closely. As a matter of fact, we say shoot, move, and communicate. That's our saying, right? Shoot, move, and communicate. As a matter of fact, some people flipped it to where it's communicate, move, and shoot. Because, hey, you want to communicate to your buddies on the battlefield, hey, I'm moving to this cover, I'm moving to this area of safety, move to it, and then shoot, rather than the other way around, because that's how important communication is, and that's how important listening is. But yeah, if you're not listening, you have no idea of what is happening. You lose context of the situation. That situational awareness goes out the window. And that's what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is nothing more than being situationally aware of the present moment, being in the here and now. So I think it comes full circle to how mindfulness can improve your listening skills, and listening closely can improve your living mindfully. But as far as how do you do it in a stressful situation, I think you have to learn to do it in the quiet and the calm first, so that it's not something you're suddenly trying to do. We have another saying, and this is certainly not SEAL specific, but it's something that we do say. I'm forgetting which. It's probably another Greek philosopher that it can be attributed to, Will. But it's basically, in times of stress, you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're going to fall to your level of training. And that applies to service members on the battlefield, but it also applies to all of us in any stressful situation. So we have to, I think, learn to listen every day so that when we do get into a stressful situation, that ability is already there. I think that's my 2 cents on that.
I think, go ahead, Ryan, please.
I like the part about you develop that mindfulness in more quiet spaces. So that's your training, right? That's the discipline, the taking the daily practice, and because I was thinking about this before, how it connects to mindfulness is you can talk about how to be a great listener and have all the greatest frameworks and theory in the world, but if I'm not actually taking care of myself, my well-being, if I'm not able to be present, I can't be a great listener, right? So I love how this conversation connects to mindfulness, and I feel like we can go down 48 rabbit holes right now and have 38 more episodes. There's so much to talk about. Will, anyway, back to you.
Talking, listening.
Men talking and listening.
Flip it. Let's start a ladies show. Ladies talking, listening, and they can teach us men how to do it better.
They are naturally better than us.
Start that show up.
For sure. They're definitely better than us at listening generally.
Well, it's a skill, right? Listening is a skill. And if you want to get better at any skill, right, you must put the time in. I started, I was like, and it's possible to become a better listener for sure. One thing that's really helped me become a better listener as a friend years ago, really very dear friend who loves quotes. He posted this quote, and then, or actually he told me this quote, and then I was like really blown away. He goes, "Listen so deeply that you disappear." And I was like, whoa, like it really hit me in the face. I'm like, what is that? I was like, oh my God. So I literally, every conversation I'm in, I started to exercise that skill of just listening and, shelving my ego and just really being tuned in, mentally, physically, emotionally, right? Coming back to that empathetic, it helped me become an empathetic listener. And then I started to see it, it's change. And I really started to become a better listener. And one of the ways that I've become a better listener is I used to be horrible at remembering people's names. And now I can catch about 80% of them. And just to have, like, talk about communication coming back and forth, like what's everyone's favorite word is their name. What's everyone's favorite word is their name. So to be able to just repeat somebody's name in a conversation, you talk about building trust, like instantly. It's just like first time they say their name, hey, I'm so-and-so, and then bringing that name back around like later on, they're like immediately perk up and immediately are connected to you in a more meaningful way because you have the integrity and the respect of just remembering their name. Yeah, I don't know where else we want to go with this, but one thing that you mentioned earlier, Ryan, is are you listening for transactional reasons? So instead of looking at a person as a person, looking at a person as a paycheck or, a dollar or something like that, that's going to definitely change the way you communicate. Like we have the two-headed monster came on, remember, from Reinventing Masculinity, Jon, right? They came on and they talked about, if you are a leader, right? What happens if you, because we kind of set up that leadership position. I'm sitting behind the desk, in the authority position. You're on the other side of the desk. What if you come out from, right, the other side of the desk and sit side by side as equals with somebody? And that has proven to really make a big impact on the communication, which is all about the listening and then probably finding a more effective solution to whatever, you're talking about in that particular instance.
Yeah, the transactional piece. I think we're pretty good at recognizing when somebody wants something from us, and we pick up on that pretty quick. I guess that could apply personally. It could apply on a date. It could apply meeting somebody new for the first time in a business or commercial context. And it's an interesting conversation on how you navigate through that, and kind of going back to that integrity word. Will, you mentioned before the gut, and an area I feel like I want to explore more and learn more about is. Jon said this in the thank you, New York City traffic, for giving us distractions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't even hear it anymore. But
so intently.
It's okay.
It's a test. It's a test.
Yeah. My ability to listen to where even I was going to go next got thrown off. I think Jon said in the meditation, he said something about listening to yourself, right? And that's like listening 3.0 or whatever you want to call it, right? How can I, while I'm in a conversation with you, also listen to the signals that are happening inside me? Am I feeling something? Am I feeling a sensation, or am I feeling an urge, or is something coming up where, I feel like I just need to say this to Jon, and let me just say it, Jon. I'm not sure I could be way off here, but this keeps coming up for me, right? And I could be way off, or I could be right on something, right? And that's kind of tuning into that. I think that gut level, that gut brain connection, because there's something there, and I think science has been understanding that, and I imagine they're going to more and more continually understand that and understand what that's all about. Because I think, Will, listening with your heart, listening with your body is the deeper level of, and where it's at, and training ourselves to do that is a superpower. I think it's a superpower.
100%.
Build. Yeah. And we can with integrity genuinely give people that experience when we have the space to do it. So I took a note there on the gut brain connection, because I think it's really powerful, and in a way I feel like it's an unexplored place a little bit with listening, or maybe I just need to do a lot more reading. I know in this book, You're Not Listening, she talks about
it's a funny name, title of the book. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great one, right? It actually grabs your attention a little bit, because most people think they are listening. When people are synced and having this quote unquote chemistry thing happening, and if they're synced up to brain monitors, they find that their brain waves are actually synchronized when we're really tuned into each other. So there's something there that's really fascinating, even at a scientific level. So I don't know, how do we make that happen?
So like the mirror neurons, right, is what's kicking in. So if you're able to, again, quote unquote, listen, whether or not anything is being said, like if Will just walked into a room and we didn't say anything, and we sat across the table from one another and just observed one another, we could pick up on the energy that the other person is putting out there, and actually start to mirror that, and how we can actually listen when nothing is even being said. It's pretty amazing.
With heart math, they've not just the mirror neurons and the brain connection, but heart math has shown that it's actually in the physical space. Two people, our hearts are connecting too. So come back into the gut level and the heart level of things. Like we start to actually, our hearts with its electromagnetic frequency starts to attune to each other. So it's just like, whoa, it's like there's so much going on. And I really like that word you said earlier, signal, right? There are signals that are coming out, not necessarily words, maybe we can, describe them. But if so much of our experience is coming from that signal and kind of feeling place, it's like, and I think one thing, what I like talking next to Ryan is like how you actually start with the company that you work with. What are some of the training mechanisms you put in place? But one thing I'll say, and I know Jon, you could back me up. It's like, if I want to get better at anything, it's like I have to start myself. So if I want to be a better listener to other people, then what about what you said earlier, Ryan, is listening to yourself, like getting it in tune with yourself. And the only way you get a chance to do that is to get still and get quiet and take time and meditate. And that's definitely going to make you a better, not just a better leader, but a better person, a better partner. So Ryan, what are some of the things that with these communication programs that you run at these different companies? So, what are some of the things that you break down for them and bring into there, or actually have them exercise the practices? Because part of what we continually try to do here on the show is give people tools and that they can exercise in order to become better at this particular skill.
Yeah, thanks, Will. I think it's important, and we do this in workshops, is to, the first thing you ask to be really like, let's define listening. Let's get clear on what it means, and are there different levels of it, and what do those look like? Then, okay, if this is what good listening looks like, here's a theoretical model for what good listening looks like. Let's take a moment and explore the bad, right? What is bad listening? So, here's a question I always ask my groups is, who here knows a bad listener? Raise your hand. Everybody's hand goes up, right? And who here is a bad listener sometimes? Usually about everybody's hand goes up. And I go, okay, just to make it easy here, when you think of the person in your life, maybe it's a family member or a friend that's a bad listener. And just because somebody's a bad listener doesn't mean they're a bad person, obviously. I have people I love dearly in my life. They're just not great listeners, and I'll continue to love them, right? But if we think about...
It makes it a little harder when they don't listen. But yes, I still love them too, Ryan.
That chemistry factor must be strong.
We know somebody in common, Ryan, that has trouble listening.
Yes, we do. Not to be named.
No, not to be named. But he knows what we're talking about. You listen, buddy.
I hope he's watching or he tunes in. So when we think about somebody that's not a great listener, okay, what are some of the things that they do? And so, Jon, Will, when you think of like top bad listening skill, one of your favorites that maybe you're guilty of, or certainly this person you have in mind is, what would you say?
Distraction, I think, is the one of the ones that, I mean, the phone, a TV. I mean, you can even see it on their face. Yeah. Even if there's not a phone or a TV, their kind of eyes glaze over, their facial expression, you can tell that they're tuned out. Those are some of the things that I think jump out at me.
Self-absorption is another one, like really just being completely self-involved and, really, you're just really being checked out, Jon. Distraction, trying to think. And also I think they're in a heightened state. It seems like they're agitated or stressed out or anxious in some ways, which I've definitely, seen. And in my own experience, like, and we talk, just even being in that sympathetic nervous system state, that fight, flight, or freeze, it's like we naturally, because of the adrenaline and cortisol in our bloodstream, like we're actually have tunnel vision, and we begin to lose the ability to hear because we feel like there's some sort of threat that's out there.
Yeah, distraction's a big one, and we can usually, when somebody's distracted, or Will's opening up to me, and you can tell that I'm typing and looking at something over here as he's opening up to me, pretty quickly, Will, you're going to stop sharing whatever you're sharing. You'll be like, all right, he's obviously doing something else, so I'm not going to keep going with the story. Being distracted is a huge one. And so back to your question, Will, part of what we do is get clear on what some of the bad listening habits are. So some of my favorites are advising, right? So rather than really continuing to listen to you, I just start giving you advice. Mm-hmm. Here's what you should do about that. Or here's I've seen this before. So this is what you can do. Actually, did you know you could? And all of a sudden, if you're the speaker and somebody's doing that, it's like, wait a second, thanks, but I didn't really want your advice. I kind of just wanted you to listen. That was nice. And so people don't do that because they're evil or bad. We want to help people, but we often can forget that's getting in the way of just giving them a space to share. So advice giving is a big one. There's also an interesting one, which is interpreting, right? And I think this is an internal thing that happens. And I keep using you guys as examples here. But Jon's talking to me. He's sharing with me something, And he says a sentence or a word, and immediately I go, I know what that is. I know exactly how it's going to play out next. And I know, I've been there. And I call that interpreting, right? I have some history, historical reference point or something that I read because I think I'm so smart about what he's experiencing. And now I'm making an interpretation about that. And what am I doing when I'm making that interpretation? I'm no longer tuned into Jon and his story. I'm in my narrative. And then I just can't wait till he's quiet so I can then insert my interpretation or whatever it is. There is related to that. There's hijacking, right? So, Will's telling me the story about he traveled to Nicaragua. He gave this amazing retreat there, deep. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, I led a retreat in Costa Rica last year. And there was 100 people there, and we absolutely crushed it. People left that retreat floating, literally. I saw one guy floating. So that's I want to hijack. You tell me a story, I want to hijack it and one up it. So we tend to do that. Yeah, it's one up it. It's kind of a killer.
Yeah, there's so much masculine conversations a lot of times. Like I don't know why men around men, like I feel the nervousness of like us trying to compete. Like we're in a conversation and it's usually all very superficial, these kind of conversations where you're just like talking about sports or talking about like a trip you had or talking about some, sexual experience with with someone and it's just really like just one-upping. And I'm thankfully I'm not a little more mature. I like to think just have those conversations. But
another one is judging, right? So have you ever judged somebody in a conversation? And
never.
I know I have. Never. You guys are masters. You guys are the master mindful gurus. So you've never done it.
Yeah, we are.
Humans like me out here do it. And I know I've been judged in a conversation, whether it's like somebody squinting their eye or sending me some sort of signal that they're judging me. And that's a killer in terms of me wanting to go deeper into that place of trust and intimacy and sharing at a deeper level. So judging is a big one. And judging is an interesting one because when I started developing my listening skills, and I have a long way to go, I think, in terms of getting better at this stuff in different contexts, I started judging people who weren't good listeners. Like I thought I was something special. I'm like, wait. And I went and talked to Charlie Simpson about it, another one of the partners at GSB. And he goes, mate, I've done the same thing with my dad, and sometimes what do we do with judgment? And while we're listening, we notice it and then we let it go. We notice it and we let it go. Because I think we're going to continue. We're humans. We judge. We're humans. We do these things. The importance is that the mindfulness aspect is like, can we become more aware of them? I don't think I'm going to stop having the tendency to hijack or the tendency to judge or the tendency to interpret. The mindfulness aspect is where can I come in and like notice it happening as Will's sharing with me, and then I can let it go and tune back into him, right? And I think that is how we start to develop the muscle. So super long-winded answer, Will. Part one is let's get clear on what the bad is, because if listeners today from this podcast and people could just become more aware of the bad, that alone is going to up their game and their ability to listen, their ability to connect with a stranger, with a loved one, with somebody that they want to deepen their relationship with the business. It's just bringing more awareness there and almost just going, okay, thank you, and then letting it go. So that's one important part, setting a groundwork. Well, and then we start to go into, okay, well, what does a hostage negotiator do when they've got 15 minutes to save a group of people's lives, or somebody that's about to jump and take their own life? And this person has a really, really short window to make an impact because people's freaking lives are on the line, right? And so keeping in mind that, and that's a very intense example, but that's where a lot of these theories, frameworks, and approaches come from. So what do they do? right? What do? They practice silence, which John brought up, like really listening and being tuned in. They also practice empathy. And so what does empathy sound like in a conversation? It is,
Yep.
it is what I mentioned before. One thing of demonstrating empathy while listening is you're sharing with me. I'm tuned in and I'm paying attention to what you're saying. I'm also paying attention to what is happening beneath your words. So I'm listening to him and I'm going, what else might he be feeling right now? Like, what else might be that experience, right? Because I'm using that extra bandwidth to tune into that. And okay, I feel like I can express this. Can I express this feeling that he might be having? And so we practice these skills, Will, in role plays. We practice it with one-on-one. So it's not just, teaching doesn't really work well when you're just at a whiteboard giving a bunch of theory and just talking to people. Learning, especially with adults, happens when you give you talk about a problem, you identify a potential solution in the form of frameworks or theories. There's plenty of that out there. The real learning happens is where we practice it together, and then we go into exercises, and then we pause exercises and we go, okay, how'd that go? What was it like to just practice being silent, really listening to somebody, and allowing them to speak, in contrast to not being listened to so well, and then exploring that, and it's insights start to come out from a speaker perspective. Insights start to come out from a listener perspective. Like, wow, I've been working in finance for 15 years. I've never in my life had somebody just be quiet and listen to me for a minute and a half, right? And you hear that a lot because it's kind of rare. If you work on a trading floor, you work in an intense environment, we give each other really short windows of time. And they're usually not filled with empathy and silence and space. And that's understandable because some environments aren't built for that. But how can we get intentional about creating that environment? And part of the methodology, keep coming back to this question, Will, is we create an environment in a safe space, and kind of like the way an athlete trains in a batting cage or a driving range or a tennis court or whatever your sport is. We isolate, we practice, we talk about it, and then we keep going deeper.
Yeah. Well, I just thought of, for anyone that's listening out there, I don't have any kids yet, but John, you do. And it's like, I can only imagine the empathy. I mean, so if you think you're a bad listener out there and you're hearing this, it's like, oh, I'm even more of a shitty person. Like, if you just take and look at the good relationships that you have out there and what makes those relationships good, and I guarantee listening, empathetic listening, is part of that. Like, and I think as a father, when your children are younger, I guess when they're turned teenagers, they don't know anything. So you're just always, but just like thinking about those relationships that you have where you do empathetically listen, where you do listen, and to give, I bring up children because they just require so much love and so much nurturing. And part of that love and that nurturing is really letting them express themselves. And part of that expression is them really hearing and receiving. So it could just be, even taking, it's awesome if they have someone like you, Ryan, come in their company and create that safe space, like the batting cage, and, and help them to begin to develop those skills. But I think there's areas in our lives that if you look at the people that you trust and love the most, you can begin to evaluate your listening skills and see what is really working for you. And then take another person, maybe take one person at the office that you have some sort of good rapport with, and start to develop those skills, like just kind of one person at a time. And I think so much of, I keep coming back to the willfulness of the ego, wanting to be right, wanting to be brilliant, wanting to be heard, where it's like, you're going to get so much further as a leader in whatever aspect of leadership that you have by holding space, by getting quiet, by listening, and with that integrity, and really allowing people to be heard. On like not just the mental level, but also that deeper physical and heart level that we've been talking about.
Hey, Will, first off, a couple of things I want to kind of build off of what you were just talking about there. But before I do that, I want to check in with Ryan because we're past the hour, and I want to see if you're still good to go on for a little bit, because this is a really interesting conversation. And our EA, Lindsay, in the background, that's always keeping us honest, she texted us saying, "Oh, I completely forgot about the 5-minute mark, the 5-minute warning to wrap up the show because I was listening so closely to what is being said." So
yeah, I'm okay to keep going, guys. I have another 20 minutes, and then I coach somebody at the top of the hour, so I definitely have
fantastic.
Yeah, we'll probably do like 5 or 10, but yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Well, then I wanted to build on what Will was talking about, and I'm going to pull up. I did take a few seconds to Google this in the background, but I was listening as closely as I could while I pulled this up. But it's a picture that I think is really speaks volumes to how important listening is to leadership. And for those of you who are listening, it's a pyramid with leading at the very top of the pyramid, but the foundation of the pyramid is listening. And then in between listening and leading is learning. And then it breaks down each section of this pyramid, which is what you were talking about, Will, is, listening. You gotta seek out the opinions of others. Then that helps you to build trust so that you can understand and respect different points of view. Then you can share responsibility and take action with others, which is what leading is. And I pulled this off I want to mispronounce this, quaglianinstitute.org, quaglianinstitute.org, but it's a pyramid, again, with listening being the foundation of leading. And that's how important it is. It truly is. To become a leader, you have to develop that foundation of the pyramid by listening. That was just more of a comment that I wanted to make so that I could sound brilliant.
You did, Jon. Check. You blew me away,
Check.
man.
All right. All right. Perfect. I can drop off the call now. No, I'm just kidding. The next thing, while we got you, Ryan, is our call here is online, right? It's a virtual call, which so many of us live in that space these days, on Zoom calls, on Microsoft Teams, or on whatever video platform it is that you're using. It's very easy to get distracted when you're on a video call, right? You can still make eye contact with the webcam or close to the webcam and be doing all sorts of stuff in the background. Maybe you have tips for this, maybe you don't, but I would like to ask, one, what's a way of being a better listener on a Zoom call? And then two, what's the flip side? How can you pick up on the fact that you're not being listened to on a video call?
Yeah. Wow. Great questions. A couple of things that come to mind. The first one, you already mentioned it, is the eye contact. So even though Jon and Will's eyes are not in this camera dot, your perception of me is happening there. So if I can do my best to, whether I'm presenting to you or I'm pitching to you, especially if I'm listening to you, to try my best to look into that dot, right? It doesn't mean the whole time I need to sit here staring in there, but I need to remember, like, your perception of me is happening there. So I need to stay. Exactly. That's it.
For those of you who are listening, Will just got super close to his webcam. It was a little bit scary, actually.
That's super empathy. That's called the super empathy gaze. So that's a big one. Another one I see that it's a really easy opportunity to coach somebody is people will have their preview monitor over here and their camera here. So it's like, I'm not Jon and Will here, but they're here. And so you're kind of taking away from your presence and your connection, because even though you're seeing us here, our perception of you is you're doing something else. Right. So that's an easy one, virtual environment. Also, if something really important is coming up, I will share. If I'm with somebody, I'll be like, hey, like, please don't enter the room during this next hour. It's a really important conversation I'm having. I'm coaching somebody, or whatever it might be. So creating an environment where I can try and create that space and that piece where I can really be present with you. For me, I have super sensitive hearing. It's annoying. It's like a superpower and a curse. I wear a headset, even though I look like a guy in the moon or something. It's arguably not the best look, but my ability to be tuned into what you're saying is happening inside my head through these speakers in my headphones. So
Right.
I find having these helps me be less distracted than what's happening out there. I hear you right inside my head. Nothing else is really getting in the way. And a bonus is when I speak, I'm clear to you. It's just similar to having a mic in front of you.
Right.
So there are those other tips for connecting virtually. I think those are the main ones, Jon. Those are the main ones that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I would add, and we talk about this right before we hit record, right? Is like turning off all your notifications. Shutting down all the other windows that are on your screen. Even if you have, a 54-inch giant screen, you don't have to fill up that entire screen with 100 windows. Is when you're on a Zoom call or whatever, whatever virtual platform it is that you're using, have that open and have that open only. I mean, obviously, if you're having a conversation that you need notes, that's sure, those notes are important.
Yeah.
But you don't need your social media platform open in the background. You don't need your chat open in the background, and everything else.
I have two more. It just came to mind as you were speaking.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got one too. Yeah.
If you can help it, get rid of the phone. Right.
Yeah.
I put my phone in the other room because I want to go to this thing, this attention-seeking device, which is very successful at taking my attention away.
Yeah.
And I'm just
designed that way.
That's what I'm designed, right? So get it out of the room, whether I'm face-to-face with somebody or virtual. Like if I can help it, put it somewhere else where it's not going to be distracting. That's a big one. And then the other thing is just height level of your camera. Another quick tip for clients is I sometimes I'll work with leaders and they're talking to me like this. I'm like, do you talk to your team like this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it looks like now I'm looking down at you, and whether I'm speaking, leading a meeting, or just connecting to you in a one-to-one, the perception that us being at the same eyesight level is going to make you feel like more my equal, and I'm not your dad talking to you. So,
for those listening and not watching, what Ryan did was he just moved his webcam as though he's talking down to the webcam, which appears to us, to me and Will, as though he's talking down to us, which never feels good.
And that's that feeling realm again. Yeah, that's that feeling realm again. You know what I mean? It's like that subtextual stuff. And one thing I'll add is in these calls, and we've done it a bunch here today, is repeating a portion of what somebody said. I think it's a great way to stay connected and build that trust, like in these virtual environments. I mean, and also, in physical space as well, but just by submitting, oh, Ryan, hey, I really like what you said there about this, that, and the other thing. And then go on with whatever you have to say. And that just shows that you're listening, and that's going to build that trust we talked about.
Definitely will.
I think we're, I don't know. I think that's a wrap, guys. Yeah. I think anything else, Ryan, you want to share before we close? Or you want to share, please, how people get in touch with you? Yeah.
There you go. That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah. So
I read your mind, Jon.
Yeah. Ryan Schadt on LinkedIn, or you could email me, ryan@comms.co.uk. Pretty much those two areas. And if you want to chat about listening or other training opportunities, we specialize in helping people to get better at connecting, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many, presentation skills to team chemistry, client chemistry. I've been working with 3 guys who I'll give a shout out to: Charlie Simpson, Russ Bolter, Richard Garnett. They're absolute masters in this stuff. You should invite them on the podcast because I learned so much of what I know from them. And wouldn't be here today without them. So, and really just a pleasure to talk with you guys about something that's really important to me. That I think, again, why do we care? If we get better at listening, I think the world would be a better place. Our businesses, our teams, our families, our relationships, and I'd like to live in a world like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, enlightening us today, and really helping us understand how incredibly powerful listening is, regardless of what position you are in life. And let me just say, but Ryan Schadt is spelled Schadt. That's Ryan Schadt.
SCH.
I always SC. Sorry, let me do that again, everybody. So forget what you just heard. It's SCHADT. That's right.
I think he was checking. He was checking to see if we were listening, Ryan.
Yeah. Thanks, Will.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'll fuck up that one at the end.
All right.
Cool. Thank everybody for listening.
Hey,
Thanks for being here.
No. Grounding practice. Come on, brother. Have you done this show before?
No, I haven't. See, now my anxiety is rising, and now I'm listening, and I'm all over the place. Okay, so obviously I need a ground to close the fucking show. So let's everybody take that seat. Let's close the eyes if that's comfortable for you. Let's exhale out the mouth, nice and easy. Good. Take a nice big inhale. Fill the belly. Inhale. Keep going. More. Let's hold that breath for 3, 2, 1. A nice relaxing exhale out the back of the throat. Good. And let's keep going. Inhale nice and big. Fill the bottom of the pelvis, the middle of the chest and torso, top of the chest. And exhaling, relaxing, cooling sigh out. And just really kind of get into the feeling of that cooling exhalation. Inhale, think of this as an opportunity to really bring more breath and more energy into your body. So on the exhale, we can feel more of that energetic relaxation as we exhale out the back of the throat. Let's just do a few more. Inhale, big. Inhale, fill with that opportunity. Keep going. Holding. 3, 2, get intentional on the exhale. Let it go coolly out. Very nice. Let's do 2 more. Inhale, bigger breath. Keep going. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Let it go. Sigh. Great. 1 more. Big breath. Keep going. Hold again. 3, 2, 1. Exhale, sigh it out. And take a moment and just thank yourself for tuning in and listening to the show, listening to all the wisdom and Ryan has brought us today. And we at Men Talking Mindfulness just want to thank you for being part of this growing community. And please share this with your friends out there. Open your eyes when you're ready. Maybe take a screenshot if you like, and post it on your social and say, "Hey, I'm listening to Men Talking Mindfulness, and you should too." Anything else, John?
I think that's it. Ryan, thanks so much for being our guest today. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the wisdom that you shared with us, and we will all be better listeners because of it. So, thank you very much. And for the audience, until next time. Peace.
Thanks for joining Will and Jon on Men Talking Mindfulness. If you enjoyed the show, please like and share it with your friends and family, and please, we would appreciate a review too. Until next time, this has been Men Talking Mindfulness. Thanks for showing up.